All right, folks. Thank you all for participating today and joining us on our Construction Blueprint series. I am Don, our entire board of directors. I'd like to welcome you to this fourth session of this series. Today's webinar will focus on the new realities facing contractors and how to succeed despite them. Our panelists today are representatives from Brawner Builders, DPR Construction, and Wohlsen Construction, and I'll introduce each of them in a moment. Behind the scenes today, we have co-executive director Tim O'Farrell and associate director Elizabeth Wainwright to help monitor the chat and the Q&A during the session. We're going to ask you to be interactive and make your own comments on the chat. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But before we begin, we'd like to share some brief information about BC&E. Many of you are familiar with our popular in-person networking events, which we miss. But while the pandemic interrupted a few of our plans earlier this year, we were lucky this month that we were able to hold our annual golf outing. It looked a little different than usual, but we incorporated measures to keep the 118 golfers safe. And we were thrilled to be able to host this event. And frankly, it was nice to see humans in person. And not just on a computer screen. So it was really a great time. It was super hot, but it was a good time. You know, this is a tricky time for the world, but BCE is committed to continuing to foster growth and excellence in all facets of the industry. We have a diverse membership that represents the entire construction industry ecosystem. And we're very fortunate to have the support of a solid membership base and loyal partners that have helped our organization thrive for more than 130 years. You'll see Elizabeth is putting through on the slides who our partners are. This is a complete list of our partners. These companies provide additional financial support for BCE that allows us to bring you programs like this. And a complete list of our members can also be found on our website and in our newly published membership directory. We also have a digital version of the directory on the site as well, so we encourage you to go there and check that out. With so many things changing, we know keeping the industry informed is key right now. So we want to make sure that we provide you with relevant information and make it as available as quickly as possible. So we encourage you to look through our website. That's www.bcebaltimore.org. All of our previous webinars in the Construction Blueprint series are on the COVID-19 resources page. And we've got additional information in our monthly newsletter, The Exchange, which contains current, timely stories about how our members are dealing with this new norm. In fact, our July-August issue is available today, and it's on our website. So, okay, so that was the BCE commercial. Now let's move on to today's webinar. The dual shocks of a global pandemic and a recession have impacted safety protocols, scheduling, budget, supply chains, project pipelines, and other really key aspects of construction. And in today's webinar, we have brought together 3 industry professionals who will discuss how a turbulent 2020 is impacting their projects and really how they're managing through these challenges. Today's panel includes Chris Hoffman, Northeast and Mid-Atlantic Preconstruction Leader from DPR Construction, Sam Negahban, Senior Vice President from Brawner Builders, and Craig Smith, Senior Project Manager from Wohlsen Construction. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good morning.
All right, well, thank you again for being here today. I think we're gonna have, we have there's a lot that's been going on. So we'll discuss the biggest changes and challenges that your companies have encountered this year and how you're adjusting to them, because I think that's what our attendees really want to know. Like, how are your companies dealing with this? I mean, this is really uncharted territory for all of us. And so I think this discussion is very important because we're sort of, you know, we hear this phrase a lot, we're kind of all in this together. And so if there's some best practices that your company is using that can be kind of spread to the masses, that is really very helpful. So before we get started, for the attendees, let me remind you that all of, you can actually chat with us in this seminar today. Just use your chat feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And you can feel free to ask questions or make comments on the things that our panelists are talking about. If you have specific questions, you can put it in the Q&A, and our panelists will see that as well. But we're going to dive right in. So I'd like each of you to provide a bit of an overview of how business has been faring these last few months. Despite all the craziness, it seems to be going pretty well for your firms. So Sam, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Actually, we have been doing pretty busy for the last 3-4 months. We were picked as a part of a team from Department of General Services that was involved to build temporary hospitals, and we built about 54 units of these hospitals across the state. We were as I said, a part of a team that was put together, and we were a sub to a company, Warwick Supply and Equipment Company. And we had to jump through a lot of hoops, try to get a lot of people all across state, basically in a short order. But it was a challenge that was worth it. We made it really a mission. And in fact, when we were having our guys go to these sites, this was a height of the pandemic, and people were worried, people were concerned. And I personally was impacted by my mother being sick. So I was telling my people that, listen, this is life-changing, this is life-saving. So we were very busy with that. That took us a while to deal with that. And then we do a lot of schoolwork. So all those schools are proceeding in summer. So as right now we're very busy. It's challenging. It's very different, but right now we are very busy.
Craig, how about Wohlsen?
We had a brief amount of time period where one of our locations, mainly in Pennsylvania, where some of our projects were put on hold for a period of maybe about a month. For the most part, though, overall, we have offices located in Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia. For the most part, we really haven't lost very much, other than some work in Pennsylvania that has since started back up, and everything is back at full force. And fortunately, we have a pretty good backlog going through the rest of this year. The big question is how things are going to be, after we get past the end of this year, and how things look going into 2021. Right now, they're looking pretty good, but we've been on the fortunate side. I know some people from my previous life that have told me they've been hit pretty hard by it. And a lot of it seems to be more regional and related to individual industries more than anything else. Very fortunately, we've been in the senior living. We do a lot of work in institutionals with regards to colleges, universities, and then we also have hospitality, which, oddly enough, most of the hospitality projects that we have been still going on. So if there's anything that really surprised me on that was the hospitality market more than anything else.
That's interesting. Chris, how about DPR?
Yeah, absolutely. And Craig, you touched on it a little bit. We were really lucky in this area to have construction deemed as an essential business. We have 28 offices across the country, and the Bay Area wasn't so lucky. Texas wasn't so lucky. Craig, you mentioned Pennsylvania for you guys wasn't so lucky. So locally, we were very lucky in that we could continue work, albeit a little blip initially with trying to figure out how to change practices and operate safely as we figured out what the pandemic or the disease actually does and how it's transmitted, all those things. But I think, Sam, you and Craig put it perfectly, is there was an initial kind of unsurety of where things were going, but in the markets that the three of us operate in, we were all very lucky. Us a little bit different in healthcare, life sciences, and advanced tech. in this area, they continue to thrive, and I think we'll be lucky in those markets as we move forward. Now, who knows what 2021 brings, and when we had the previous downturn in 2008, 2009, we saw it more on the 2010, 2011 end of things, and so we're very cognizant of that and trying to make sure that we're continuing to make good business deals now so that we thrive during what inevitably will hit us in a year or two.
Right. And when you say good business deals, what are you looking for that constitutes a good business deal?
Sure. I think there's, because of the uncertainty, some organizations may decide that they're going to perform a job without fee or just to keep their forces busy. And I think there's some right to that, and that's a business deal that those organizations want to do. But we also want to be cognizant of, we have a business and an organization to fund, and so we want to continue that business and continue to be profitable through the downturn. And so when I say poor business decisions, I think there's the uncertainty can lead folks to believe that they need to take a job for no fee or just to really pay for people to work. And I think we as an industry need to be cognizant that that is not necessarily going to keep the organization in business and the construction industry moving in a very good fashion.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris.
Yeah.
I think that would be short-sighted if we went down that route. We also are pretty much sticking with the business that we know. We're not attempting to go somewhere we're not familiar with. We are good at what we do, so we try to do the same thing. But I wholeheartedly agree with Chris that if we were to start chasing numbers and do stuff for nothing, it will catch up and it will be a worse scenario business-wise. So we're trying to just steady she goes. That's our motto right now. So,
Chris, you actually mentioned, you had to change practices and so you could operate safely. I'd like you guys to touch a little bit on what that entailed. I mean, it's different for everybody, and and I imagine it's different on every site, and every owner might have their own restrictions and things. So maybe Craig, could you maybe start with telling us a little bit about how you guys changed your practices?
Yes, where possible, obviously, we have people working from home. That's been in the larger offices more than anything else. We have a lot of personnel that actually are located out on the job sites. We have assigned to each particular project in every single office a pandemic safety officer that is required for maintaining records, checking temperatures, making sure that people are filling out affidavits and so forth, that we don't have anybody entering our sites. Obviously, with most companies on job sites, you have the hand washing stations, the hand sanitizing, the requirements for additional PPE with regards to face shields, goggles, masks being worn at all times, separating crews. It's become somewhat of a scheduling and coordination issue with regards to limiting forces throughout the project. It's required us to look and reorganize schedules with regards to how we build the projects to make sure that we don't have a bunch of people working in one area versus another. With regards to inside the offices and so forth, we have a lot of the same requirements with regards to face masks, maintaining the 6-foot separation and so forth. We do a lot of these Zoom meetings. We actually use Teams instead of meeting face to face. So we've become a lot more educated with regards to that. And then our technology side of our company actually sends out additional seminars on how to utilize this in the new world.
Makes sense. Chris?
Yeah, Craig, I think you really hit everything. And I'll just give a quick example. DPR, we developed our own kind of app. So even me walking into the office this morning, I scanned a QR code, take a few questions. Just to make sure that I haven't been in close proximity to somebody that has been tested or tested positive, and through a slew of questions along that, then get the okay to enter, take my temperature, and then continue the office. This is not just the office, this is every job site. As you said, Donna, there's a few owners that require maybe more than that. NIH is one of them, which makes sense. But we're trying to be consistent across all of our job sites and then amend as necessary as the owners require us, so that there is some semblance of making sure that, you know, if you go to a DPR job site, you know exactly what the requirements are as far as questionnaire testing, and then as well as actually the crews that are on site in social distancing, cloth face coverings, etc. So we're now that we've kind of reached a point where we understand the disease to some extent, we are now trying to maintain consistency in how we do it and limit exposure and limit outbreaks on each job site. That's all we can do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can add to what the guys have said already. The only thing that I can tell you is that our world has changed. It has changed for a good bit, and I don't see it going back anytime soon. We did one of the things that we did, that we're not quite as large as DPR. But one of the things that we were able to do that helped us, we kind of created a war room right off the get-go, and we selected staff from different departments that we put in that war room that was kind of like brought everybody else up to date as to what are the evolving issues, because there were so many things were happening in those early days that it just was head spinning. You know, we couldn't figure out like what's the right thing to do, what's the right way to go about it. And we deal with different owners, and like Chris was saying, it's hard to, like, these different people have different requirements, and sometimes you have to figure out, okay, well, this job needs this, that job needs that. So it was a challenge, but as Chris mentioned, I think we are settling down. We have established ways, and we are settling down, and now we are kind of like controlling and maintaining issues that we had to deal with. We have had jobs that were shut down because of the outbreak, and you know, when you have a community outbreak, well, then that's it, and you know, it's too late. You have to shut the job down. So we have been involved with that, but I think the world has changed, and I think that with every passing day, we're learning more, and we're kind of like modifying our systems, and we're hoping that you know, we're able to weather through the storm as it's coming through. I don't really see any other way to do this without just being flexible enough to deal with the changes as they come.
So, Sam, you said that you've had a couple jobs that have shut down. How has that affected schedules and, you know, obviously crews, and, you know, financially, how does that affect?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, I want to reiterate the motto of let's work together. In some of the job sites that the owners are willing to work with us, that has not been a problem really, because in fact, the owners are who initiate.
We lost him. Right when he was, just when he was getting good.
COVID times.
Just when he was getting good, he froze on us. We'll give him a second to, hopefully he can hear us, and maybe Sam, you could log off and log back on. Of course, there always has to be some sort of tech glitch when we're doing something like this. Why not? But while we're waiting, Sam, Chris or Craig, do you want to jump back on?
First off, I think we ought to go ahead and blame the issue with regards to the technical difficulties on COVID-19.
We will. That's what we do for everything at this point.
Yeah, as far as that is concerned, yeah, a lot of it depends upon not only the client and what the work is, but you know, what type of project it is. If you have a senior living facility that you're adding, like we have one, we're adding additional buildings to the campus. Part of the project is that. Part of the project is renovating an existing building where residents are still living there. Now, obviously, it's senior living. You have to be more cognizant. That work and the work inside of that building has obviously changed. So if you're doing work within the structure, that people are obviously inside, especially our citizens that are more at risk because of age or because of existing physical ailments and so forth. That type of work, you're going to have a lot different requirements and a lot different with regards to how you operate within that facility than if you do if it's a wide open space and you're dealing with construction personnel. And it looks like Sam's back.
Sam's back.
Yeah, I know. So I got frozen out. But what I was telling you, that on some of the jobs that the owners were willing to cooperate with us, we did not have any issue with the schedule. However, we are continued having problem with supply chain with our vendors, that especially the ones that are coming across the state. We buy a lot of cabinets and things like that from Georgia, Michigan, doors for different various projects from different locations, and Minnesota, and those things are all impacted. Craig mentioned something about Pennsylvania. When Pennsylvania shut down, that shutdown actually impacted some of our labor force that was not able to come to our job sites, even though our job sites were in Maryland. They were not, they were prevented from coming in. So if we are able to have a unified motto of let's work together, I think it would work. I think that we're able to weather the storm of this schedules, delays, and certainly cost impacts. Now we have also had owners that decided to tell us to accelerate, and they are willing to pay for that. And they asked for us and our other subcontractors to give them cost modifications, and they reviewed it, they approved it, and based on that, we're proceeding. So it's a gamut of all kind of stuff that is happening right now.
Keep you on your toes, obviously.
Yes.
No dull moment, that's for sure. Well, you touched on something interesting, Sam, about personnel and staff and the workers getting to sites. If folks from Pennsylvania couldn't get to a site, I mean, how did you still had to keep the job going. So right. There's already a shortage of folks in this industry anyway. So this just must compound the situation.
It does. It really creates a havoc with our own forces and also with our subcontractors' forces, because there is not that, you can't make people up. So I can't go to, if a subcontractor all of a sudden has a shortage, if my painter has a shortage of painters, it's not like I can just go out and hire additional painters. They're just not available. Right. Same thing with our crews. If a carpentry crew goes down, well, I have to kind of sit down and beg somebody from another job that has some lag available and kind of be on my toes and flex my crews to a different job site so that I can keep the critical activities going. But it is a challenge, Donna. Every time a crew goes down, it's a huge challenge. And I hear this so often from our subcontractors. Hey, I just don't have any people. I called my cabinet guy down in Georgia, and he said, look, 2 of my guys have gotten sick online, and then we have had a person that has passed away. So what do you want me to tell you? It's not like I can go out and get people. So it's very difficult.
Yeah. Chris, how about your folks? How are you handling the personnel issue?
Yeah, there's a craft personnel issue and an admin personnel issue. I think craft-wise, you hit the nail on the head there, Sam. I don't know how much other I can add other than trying to work with those individuals to make sure. So from a Pennsylvania standpoint, when we started, getting them a letter basically stating that they were driving to a job site in a different state, and trying to figure out the legalese of all that was really challenging initially. As well as making sure that all the craft feels safe going to job sites. And so initially we're doing work in live hospitals, as is I think Craig and Sam. And so shifting that work outside and kind of retooling the way that our schedule was set up, so that we could work through any challenges or be more thoughtful about how we were working inside in live facilities while all this was happening. And that's more of trying to make people feel safe and limit outbreaks on the job site. And then there's obviously the admin piece of it, and making sure folks have good internet at home or have monitors, feel like they're still engaged with their project teams when they're having to work from home, as well as making sure that they're supported when childcare isn't there, or they're caring for an elderly parent that can no longer get nursing care or whatever it may be. So I think we as an organization, and a lot of organizations, are really trying to take it holistically as taking care of our people, from our craft folks to folks that are in the office.
It's got to be challenging for you all to have, you know, folks working from home who are used to being on the job site, and now they've got to change the way they're doing their job. I mean, has that been a huge learning curve, or do you think people have sort of, you know, kind of slid into that because they were forced to? Craig,
I mean, I'll tell you from my perspective, we were kind of like surprised how easily people adopted the new world order, and I have to admit, these folks are younger, so they're I guess they're used to that concept of electronics. But I tell you, one of the biggest problems we had is internet speed. You know, like Chris was touching up on, a lot of the folks that are working from their home or from their car or from wherever they are, it's the internet speed was really an issue that we are continuously have to upgrade, you know, help out. But overall, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, a lot of it's an individual thing. For me, working from home from time to time, because most of the time I've been able to be in the office, but from working from home from time to time, it's actually been pretty easy. I have very good internet speed. My children are all grown. I don't have to worry about disturbances at home. We do have some people that have young children at home, and with school being out, you know, that can be a disturbance, and that can be a problem as far as getting things done. It's on a person-to-person basis. I will tell you that when I work from home, I miss the social interaction. We are in a person-related enterprise. We deal with people on a daily basis, and that's part of the thing that I actually love about this industry to begin with, and that's been hampered to a great deal.
I agree, Craig. I miss that too. I miss seeing my guys. We have a lot of younger guys that work for us, and I like when we can actually see them face to face, and we can mentor them, we can teach them, but they're not available. And one of the bigger issues that they're facing is daycare. I mean, daycare is really a issue that is not going away, and right now we're trying to help as much as we can, but it is very difficult.
Absolutely. And that's across every industry at this point. I mean, so everyone is feeling the effects of that, that's for sure. Let's talk a little bit about the cost of doing business right now. You know, how are your companies dealing with extra costs, or, you know, are the GCs footing the bill for all of the additional things that need to be done to get the job done safely? Can you talk a little bit about that? There's got to be some financial effects on your company for what's happening with COVID.
I mean, I guess I can go first and tell you a little bit about what we have done. For us, it's been a mixed bag. Certainly, there are things that we are bearing the cost, and we know that is going to impact our bottom line, but we just have to do what we have to do. When it comes to PPE or the protection of our folks or the additional things that we have to do to adhere to CDC guidelines, those are all being done. On some jobs, as I was telling you, the owners are cooperating with us, and they are asking us to do some things that are in an accelerated fashion. And in those cases, they are compensating us. So it's a mixed bag for us. Some of the jobs are taking hits, and those bottom lines will be impacted, but some jobs not as much. So and it really comes down to it has come to a project for us.
Okay.
Yeah, for the most part, most of the owners have been understanding. We've set up a separate cost code or phase code to attribute those costs to. I would say that it hasn't been as bad or as much as what we originally anticipated. The largest cost is not necessarily on the PPE as much as it is on the supervision and the labor side. We have our projects are cleaned multiple times during the day. We have a cleaning crew that comes down and wipes down and sanitizes all high contact areas throughout the project site. Those types of costs are the ones that are probably the most expensive. Plus, I would say From a supervision standpoint, on the job site, I would say we probably spend about anywhere between 3 and 4 hours a day dealing with COVID-19 issues. So if you were to take the actual cost of time, understanding that for the most part, these individuals are salaried individuals, but you have to factor in how much additional work you're putting into it. I would say it's probably in the supervision and the general labor with regards to cleaning. Hand wash stations add additional costs. We have additional cleanings for the portable toilets and so forth on the job sites. That's probably secondary after the labor and supervision costs. And then probably comes into the PPE, because the PPE, while it does have an additional cost, you know, your face shields and everything, your face masks, after you can get them, because for a while there was a little bit of a struggle. Yeah. They're actually not that expensive, so it's not adding a ton of money to the project.
Yeah, and I'd just add to that, Craig. You know, we're all relatively large organizations locally, and we got to keep the revenue rolling. And so it was our due diligence to create that cost code, as you said, Craig, to understand what the risk is, if anything. But what we've seen is that you know, DPR didn't create this, Wohlsen didn't create it. Right, none of us created this pandemic, and it isn't our fault. It isn't DPR's fault. It isn't the construction industry's fault. And we all need to work together on what the best plan is for your specific job site. And the owner, we need to educate our owners on what that plan is and if there's an associated cost to it. I think we've seen a lot more working together during this phase. Donna, you said it, right? We're all in this together. And that's really enlightening, and hopefully we can continue that after this pandemic passes, is working together to understand what the challenges are on that job site that week, whatever it may be. But in this case, I think everyone, owners, architects, and general contractors alike, have worked together to figure out what makes the most sense for that job site to keep people safe and to keep the job going, both from a cost standpoint and from a schedule standpoint.
Okay. I do want to remind our attendees that you do have the chat feature. So if there are some things that Chris, Craig, and Sam are saying that you want to add, or you have questions specifically for them, we will take a look. We do have some other questions for them, but you know, we want this to try to be as interactive as possible. We've kind of figured if we were all in a room together, you'd be asking questions. So please feel free to do that. You know, Sam, you had mentioned the supply chain being an issue for some of your projects. How do you deal with that? I mean, are you searching for other companies that can fill those gaps, or is it just a matter of now let's wait and see until the supply comes back? Tell me.
Well, honestly, it's too late to search for other places that we can replace, because a lot of these things, these items have a long lead items, and they have been submitted for approval. They have been approved. They've been in the works. So we kind of have to work with the mill, work with the factory, work with the supplier, work with distributors. However we can, accelerate whatever we can, track down the systems, make sure that our place in the line, in the manufacturing is not slipping. Ask for evidence of manufacturing, ask for pictures, ask for routing for the trucking, keep the information with the truckers open. It's a lot of stuff that we have been doing is in that fashion. We haven't had a situation where we said, okay, well, if you're not going to have our door by Wednesday, I'm going to go buy from somebody else. That's just not going to work. Right. It's too late for that, for the game now. So our experience has been that we have brought up opportunities with the vendors as to, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? What can you do? How can you help me? Where can you help me? Can you give me a day? Can you give me 2 days? Whatever is it? Is there a different trucking company? Is there a dedicated truck? Because a lot of the issues that we ended up with initially was there was not enough trucking. And then the trucking went on the other side, where now it's like you get a truck, and if it's not dedicated to you, it might make like 8-9 stops before it gets to you. And that, they tell you, oh yeah, it's on the truck, it's coming. Well, when is it going to get here? Those are type of issues that we are dealing with. but the supply chain is a big issue on every job that we have. And just when you think you have it and everything is lined up, bang, something goes crazy, and all of a sudden, we have a truck that doesn't show up, or if a truck shows up and there's half a load on there, and you call the manufacturer, oh yeah, well then this happened and that happened. So that's an ongoing challenge right now, Donna.
We had something that early on, because of things being stopped, from China when there was originally an issue. There are certain items in the construction industry that are manufactured primarily in China. And we had some items that we saw as a possibility early on, and we looked to have them manufactured or get them locally. Some of them required additional funds because of the cost difference. We had one in particular with regards to shower doors on one of our projects, where originally the lead time on, I believe, was 8 weeks was what we were originally quoted. And after this hit, it came up to 20 weeks. And then they couldn't even guarantee that. Part of the problem was also when the materials were coming into the United States, there was a hold on them for a certain amount of time period, depending upon what port they were coming into, whether or not the port was operational. We actually wound up getting the shower doors locally, actually from the United States. And we were actually fortunate. This dates back to what Sam was saying, and it's not just from country to country and from state to state, but it's from region to region. The shower doors that we wound up actually getting, we actually got from Georgia. And they actually sped things up, and instead of like 8 weeks, we got them in 4. So the reason is because the area of Georgia that they were coming from was not hit hard by COVID-19, but there are other areas in the more metropolitan areas around Georgia that were almost completely shut down with some of their manufacturing. So it was one of these things that you have to do a lot of digging and cross your fingers and pray and hope that between the time period that you were ordering the materials and when they were supposed to arrive on site, there wasn't a major outbreak that was going to go ahead and shut down the change that you just made. And based upon that and how long the lead time was, you had to make a calculated decision as to, yeah, we're going to go ahead and stick with this because right now they're saying it's okay and we think it's going to work fine. And the best we're going to improve is maybe a week or two, and then that's not worth it. So it was very calculated. Right now, things seem to have stabilized a lot, and the supply chains have gotten a lot better, although I will tell you that there were some items that we had recently that were delayed by about 2 or 3 weeks, and fortunately we were able to go ahead and work around scheduling in order to make it work for the project. It's a constant item for monitoring, and that does add additional time to the project as far as the supervision and the operation standpoint.
And I'll just add one quick thing on that is, we're all concerned about, there's always pieces and parts that come from China, as you said, Craig, on light fixtures, on mechanical equipment, whatever it may be. We were initially very concerned about that. We had owners asking about Buy America, just to keep it within the US because we could control that better. What we're now, as an organization, focusing on is as the outbreak hopefully lessens worldwide and construction continues to then increase as far as workers on site and projects happening worldwide, that will then impact the supply chain even more for major equipment that we're getting overseas or tile that we're getting in Italy or whatever it may be. We're now concerned about what's going to happen 6-12 months from now when everybody is kind of rebounding potentially, not just in the US, but elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's something else is that right now money's cheap, and sooner or later we're going to come out of this thing. Hopefully sooner rather than later if a vaccine is developed, and some people are saying by the end of the year, and is distributed to the point that things start to get back to normal. With money being so cheap, there's a lot of potential out there for the construction industry to see a very quick, very rapid rebound, and we may be in the opposite situation, you know, a year from now, whereby we have too much work going on in order to properly man it, and then all of a sudden now you're worried about getting the people that actually in the trenches that actually physically do the work in order to properly man the projects. It's going to be fluid. It's a fluid situation that's going to change from month to month, week to week, until this thing is basically over, and you're just going to have to deal with it.
So we do have some questions coming in, and this is actually from a subcontractor, and I'm hoping you guys can answer this. She says, our project managers have been to several job sites where there is no COVID protocol. As a second-tier subcontractor, how would you suggest we approach a GC who is resistant to implementing a safety protocol?
Well, you remind them of a CDC guidelines and legal liability that they're opening themselves up to. I mean, that's crazy. I don't know why. You got to do your due diligence when it comes to your staff. You certainly can't be a GC, but there is CDC guidelines out there that, you know, to say the least, at least everybody should follow that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, John Anania, my counterpart, always says manage by fact, and there are facts on the CDC website and guidelines to live by. That's concerning. The industry needs to be better than that.
Yeah, I don't understand how a GC or anybody for that matter would want to take on the legal liability of doing something like that. One of the major concerns that a lot of business, not just in construction, but throughout the United States, the reason why some businesses are reluctant to reopen is because they're worried about lawsuits from their employees saying that you expose me and reckless endangerment. I mean, just because of the reckless endangerment issue, I just don't understand why. I mean, I would first bring it up to the general contractor, and then number two, I hate to say this, but I get my legal department involved with it from a standpoint of sending over a notification letter and putting it on the record. You got to hold the general contractor's feet to the fire. And I will tell you that for the most part, our subcontractors that we deal with on a regular basis have been outstanding. As soon as something happens, we are notified. And they go into an automatic protocol. If we've had, I think probably I wouldn't say the strangest or the weakest response that I have seen from a subcontractor is I had one actually call me up. The crew was actually on their way, and the owner of the company said, "One of my guys has got a fever. Is that a problem?" And it was like, yeah, it's a problem, but everybody else, they don't even ask if it's a problem. They say, I have an issue. One of the people on one of my crews has tested positive, or they are sick. They're not going to be available. The entire crew is staying off of job sites, and they're quarantined until we get the test results back. For a GC not to take that standpoint, I think is inexcusable.
Yeah. So really, the subcontractor has every right to say something to the GC.
Of course.
You know, obviously protecting their crew.
Of
I hope that helped answer.
Well, we're a team, Donna, with the subcontracting community, because for the most part, we don't physically do the work. So subcontractors are our lifeblood. And if we don't look after the subcontractors, then we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
As an industry.
Great
Correct.
point. Great point. And so you are seeing some of the subcontractors having some difficult times. I mean, we've talked about personnel, you know, we've talked about transportation issues. And so from the GC standpoint, I mean, I know we're sort of putting this thread in there all the time about working together, but you guys have to be a little bit more, I guess, reasonable in your expectations at this point, because like you said, Chris, this is nobody's fault, right? I mean, we can't blame the subcontractor. We can't blame the GC. We can't blame the owner. It's this crazy pandemic that has taken over our lives. So with the subcontractors, what else can you do to kind of help them through this? I mean, a lot of them are small businesses that are struggling.
I mean, I'll tell you some of the stuff that we did. We kind of like, once we established our guidelines, we kind of shared that with our subs that didn't have it, kind of let them use our guidelines as a platform, help them with some of the things that we were doing, kind of like mentor them a little bit as to, hey, these are what is working for us, and, try this. And then we kind of like held their hand a little bit in the beginning just to get them going. And also in some occasions, we were able to give them some financial assistance to be able to like help them through the storm. But it's been a basically sub each individual organization. We extended a hand out, like Craig said, without our subs, we're nobody. We can't, there's only so much we can do by ourselves. So we have to make sure that our subs are on board and that they are they have to do well for us to do well. So we did as much as we could and continue to do to help our subs through this storm just the way we're going it through. And, we're learning and, we're being honest with them and we're just trying to be as forefront as possible.
Absolutely. We have another question in our chat. Given the need to control the numbers of people on construction sites, are you looking at doing more prefabrication or off-site assembly? Chris, you're nodding.
Yeah, sorry, I was really excited to see this question. So, in general, I mean, we were struggling with the number of workers available for the amount of construction that was going on locally, nationally, however you may want to put it. So we were already driving towards more prefabrication anyway. I think that this pandemic is forcing the issue even more to an extent where we're prefabricating things off-site or prefabricating panels in a warehouse we have in Phoenix and shipping it because we have to, because it's safer. Inevitably, when you're hanging a wall and you got two guys on either side or two gals on either side, you're socially distant in doing that. Same goes for racks, for MEP, et cetera. And so I think this is the workforce, the limitation on the number of workers was pushing the issue. And then this is now forcing the issue for us to look internally on what we can prefabricate that we haven't thought about prefabricating previously.
Craig, how about you?
We look to prefabricate wherever possible, as it is anyway. We have a hotel that it's a high rise. All the wall panels were prefabricated structural light gauge metal studs. We have a stick built project. Similarly, we look to panelize it. There are limitations to what you can do with that. That would have to be with regards to future projects that are actually going up now. We're looking towards that. But again, a lot of it depends upon how long this whole system is. I think there's going to be some changes in the industry because of this, and looking for more prefabrication of materials and so forth. Maybe an end result that happens because of being in this, kind of like the same thing. You're going to see more telecommuting. I don't know if it's going to stay. In fact, I doubt it's going to stay at this level once the virus has passed or there is some type of a cure. But I think there's still going to be additional telecommuting. We're going to be looking for additional panelization, like Chris was talking about, prefabrication. It actually may be a benefit at the end of the day, because the advantage with that is obviously schedule. And one of the things that drives costs, particularly from a GC standpoint, is schedule.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I can add. The guys talked about pretty much everything. I think for us is also that would be looking to the future. We're not there right now.
Right. So we have another question, and this has to do with technology. Do you think construction digitization will help the contractor to prevail to some extent in the current situation? It looks like this person's actually saying that, all of a sudden there's a plethora of automation products flooding the market. How do they know what's good, what's bad, and what is going to be the most effective to get the job done and to be effective for GCs?
To be honest with you, for us, we're too thick in this storm right now to be able to tell you anything about that stuff. We're trying to use the tools that are available to us right now with the folks that we have. Like Craig said, maybe as a result of this, coming out of it, we will certainly will have additional tools that we will be able to utilize. Sitting here right now, I can't tell you anything that we have done that has been a great assistance to us, except like Zoom, WebEx, things like that we have utilized that has helped us.
We haven't really gone into additional, adding additional items. I think it's more of a additional utilization of things that we already have. From a corporate standpoint, our technology department is rather advanced compared to other companies I've worked through my career. We have interactive plan tables that we already use. We've already utilized a lot of Zoom team meetings and so forth on a lot of occasions. And quite frankly, we already use a lot of technology to begin with. If there's anything, I think we're starting to rely on it more instead of just adding additional.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah, you guys hit it on the head. I think, which is good or bad, I think it's more of they're all good for what they're intended to do, but for what they're intended to do, is that what you're trying to solve? So it's just understanding what you're trying to accomplish with whatever it may be, from BIM 360 to Teams to whatever it may be, SharePoint, etc.
So we are actually just about out of time, and I do want to talk to you just a little bit about the future. I know you talked a little bit about, backlog and things are okay right now, and obviously none of us have crystal balls, so we can't determine how things are going to be. But what is the best approach that you'll be taking when you're planning and bidding for new work? I mean, you've got to set your sights on the future. If you could kind of talk a little bit about that, what the plan is for the future.
Well, our plan is real simple. We're going to stick with what we know.
Yeah.
We're going to do the things that we know, and we know how to do it good. And we try to become more competitive, try to find better means and methods. But I'm not comfortable in jumping into something that we have completely no idea, just to get into a new segment of the market or things like that. I think that's not wise for us to do at this time.
Okay.
We've been actually very fortunate with regards to our backlog. Right now we're taking a more conservative approach with regards to projections and so forth.
Okay.
We do a lot of our business is repeat business with existing clients. So we usually get a pretty good handle about what's going to be coming to fruition and what isn't. From a standpoint, myself personally, I actually on a regular basis will check ABI, see how things are going in the architectural market, because that's usually a pretty good barometer of how things are going. March, there was a huge drop off. April was pretty bad. May saw a slight uptick. June actually saw an 8-point increase in billings to a 40 rating. And then with regards to inquiries, with regards to new designs and so forth and new work, has jumped by 7 to 44. Readings of 50 or better usually are a good sign that things are actually on the uptick. Around 50 is kind of like stable. So, those upticks, and I think is a result of the fact that some of the markets opened up a little bit more, money is cheap. And for the most part, a lot of people are still optimistic about the future, that, these things are going to come around and sooner or later we're going to be over with this. So I wouldn't say we're planning for the worst. We're taking a conservative approach with the idea that if there is some type of a vaccine or something that we can get past this after the first of the year, that we'll be in a better position, rather than just hoping for something that's going to be there, or just planning for all out Armageddon, which I don't think anybody really expects.
Yeah, and I'd say from a DPR standpoint, after the downturn in 08, 09, we've been working between now or then and now to make sure that we were diversified in our markets locally to make sure that we could weather a storm that was inevitable to happen, right? Every 7 years, every 10 years, whatever economist you listen to. And so I'd say anything that you try to change now is probably too late. And that, we've worked the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years to make sure that we were poised to be to make it through this type of potential downturn. So.
Great. Well, Craig and Chris, Sam, thank you. This has been a really good discussion. I think it's really important for the industry to hear from the industry. To kind of see how you're dealing with challenges and kind of looking to the future. And thank you to all of our attendees today. We'll make this discussion available on our website. You can find it in the COVID-19 resources page, www.bcebaltimore.org. And I do want to encourage you, if you have ideas or issues you want us to address, please contact us. You can simply send an email to communications@bcebaltimore.org, or there's a contact sheet on our website if that's easier. We are continuing to be here for our members and to help the industry navigate through this next chapter. So we'll help in any way we can. So thank you all again, and be well.